Okay. So we said yesterday, we highlighted the 3 times where they mentioned when Ted Lavender dies. So until he was shot in the head outside of the village, until he was shot, Ted Lavender carried 6 or 7 ounces of premium dope. And then when Ted Lavender was shot, they used his poncho to wrap him up and carry him across the paddy and lift him into the chopper that took him away. And we said the tone of that, every time it was mentioned, it was like kind of just casual and like it was what it was, and it wasn't very sympathetic. And so that was unusual, because typically when you talk about somebody dying, you've got some sort of emotion with it, right? Okay, so number 2, in paragraph 8, so this long one here, even though readers already know Ted Lavender will die, the actual moment of his death in this paragraph comes as a surprise. So how does O'Brien, or the author, structure the paragraph to create that surprise? So first we got to find like where he... So here is where he actually is mentioned of him dying, and I'm going to highlight it. And we have to analyze like how the author structured that paragraph, or like how it's written. So what was talked about before the mention of him, what they carried specifically, what was he mentioning? The weapons and the ammunition. So he goes on to list what they were carrying, how much they weighed, like several different times. We see lots of facts, lots of numbers, and then bam, Ted Lavender dead. So it's like, surprise the reader, there it is. And then it goes into, a little bit more detail. So that's how you would answer that question. Your notes for the E, you're going to either type like, why do you think the authors structured the paragraph like this? Like by describing information, and then bam, like, oh, by the way, Ted Lavender, he was killed like this. Why do you think the author did that? Or you can answer, how did, like, the fact that the author did that, like, how did that resonate with you as the reader? Like, what did it make you do? Did it make you like go, oh wait, what? Like, that's really surprising? Or how did this structure impact you as the reader? So one sentence answering either one of those 2 paragraphs questions, and that'll work for your E part of your ACE. Here again, we are surprised by Ted Lavender's death. How does O'Brien structure this section of the text to create surprise? So we got to find 16. It's mentioning several times in the story of his death, and so like the first point was like it was all very casual, like this guy died, and then the last one that we just looked at was let's see, where we just answered, where it's talking about the weapons and how much they weighed, and then, oh, by the way, like Ted Lavender died, so it gets a little bit more serious. And then here we've got the picture of these guys around the tunnels, and they're waiting for somebody to get out, and then they're making jokes, and then Ted Lavender's shot in the head on his way back from going to the bathroom. So it's like even more of a, like, life is like normal for them in this moment. They're going about their job. This guy goes to the bathroom, and then bam, it's like the reality of where they're at and what's going on hits them like a ton of bricks. Okay, so that's kind of how you can answer that. How do you feel reading that? Use that for your explanation sentence or a couple of sentences. Like, you have the imagery in your head of the soldiers and what they're doing around the tunnels, and then you can imagine this guy, like, he's just walking back and he thinks, I'm just going back to what I'm doing, and then bam, his life just ends. So all that imagery in mind, and the imagery is like what helps create the surprise factor of this as well, because you can just kind of see it play out in your head. So how do you feel reading that, knowing their situation and where they're at and what they're doing? That's what you can, how you can answer the E portion. The fact that Ted Lavender dies 3 times in this text, O'Brien manages to surprise readers every time. So what truth about war did these structural choices emphasize? So he doesn't actually like die 3 times. You can only die once, right? But the fact that he brings it up 3 times, and each one of those 3 times,
It's like he replays it over again.
Yeah, he replays it over again, but also like there's a different emotion attached to it every time. Like at first it's kind of casual, then it's in the middle of like describing the things that they carry. Then it's at the moment like we least expect it, like the guys were just doing their job. They didn't expect anything crazy to happen. So I would think of the last time with him like just walking back from the bathroom. What does that tell you about the reality of war? Lesson to take away from the story, and the fact that how we've seen the different description of Ted Lavender's death. You don't know, like in terms of war, I want you to come up with a sentence or a message to take away from how he's written about Ted Lavender's death. About relate war and death like it's unpredictable, something along those lines. And once you finish that one, you'll go save and next, and it will bring you to multiple choice questions that you'll answer on your own. And then the last one, it says in the things they carried, what theme does O'Brien develop by including long lists of the things they carried in this story? So think about like what they carried and come up with a life lesson to take away in regards to what men carry in war. That's how you're answering number 5.